are these people?
I did want to talk about this. And as I said earlier, we've talked a little bit about this before. I know Richie Medhurst, shout out to him, has talked about this probably a little more extensively than we have. But as I said earlier, I think this is a story that everyone should be talking about more, given the implications moving forward, considering what's happening in the Middle East right now, could very well be catastrophic in terms of how this relates to Israel, but other countries in the region and ultimately us in the West if we're not careful. So, so I basically said to Reef, I'm talking about this story in a way as kind of insurance because I'm sure that this will be mentioned at some point, probably not now, but within the next 2 years. So this could be something that, number one, we want to have on record to kind of say we've talked about this before. But number two, especially given you guys are here for a reason, we want to make sure that you guys are aware of the implications of this so that you can understand fully of what's happening in Israel right now, that you guys know it's not strictly just about the Palestinians, really. Like, there are economic issues involved in this that mainstream media is not talking about and will not talk about, that Israel is going through the motions right now to basically commit genocide against the Palestinians. But it goes a lot more deeper besides, eradication of Palestinians. If anything, and I said this, I believe, last week, Palestinians are in the way of the plans that Israel has had in mind for decades. What do I mean by that? So let's play this TikTok. If you can read the name on this, Reef.
Yes, Kim Runner. At Kim Runner.
There we go.
I do believe.
She talks about.
Well, that's not the that's the person on Twitter who posted it. I will try to zoom in when we do the thing, and I'll try to read it.
So yeah, let's listen to what she has to say, and we'll continue after she's done.
We've all been getting played. My mind is blown. I just watched something that answers every question about why America, the UK, and France are so staunchly in support of Israel and what it's doing right now. And of course, it has to do with money, obviously. But not what we would have thought of. I think we all would have assumed it was oil. Turns out it's not. Turns out this is what it's all about. This is the Suez Canal. This is owned by Egypt. The Suez Canal makes about $9 billion a year. And where does that $9 billion go to? It goes to Egypt. Egypt nationalized the canal, so it makes all the profit. So who's not collecting on this are the Americans, the British, and the French, and the Israelis. They want to change that. Enter the Ben Gurion Canal Project over here. This is what's happening right now in the Middle East. What we're seeing on TV is all a ploy. It's all about granting access for this canal. The American and Israeli government plan on nuking this land over here to build a canal. They're going to use this land because that land is built out of a rocky terrain, whereas the Suez Canal is built on more of a sandy terrain. By digging through a rockier ground, they would have more likelihood to have a wider canal, allowing two ships to pass each other at the same time, as opposed to one ship, which is presently happening in the Suez Canal. And where do you think that canal empties? Not just in the Mediterranean Sea. The Ben Gurion Canal would empty right in northern Gaza. The Ben Gurion Canal would empty into the Mediterranean at the northern point of Gaza. Northern Gaza. So all we're seeing here, ethnic cleansing, genocide, forcing all of the Palestinians into the south of Gaza. It's all to build this canal.
And that's even not, like, that picture right there is not even the secondary picture I normally see of it going directly through Gaza. That was above Gaza. But like, the one I see is like, right, directly through. Like that little bend, there's a couple little squigglies that they take out and go straight, and it's through Gaza.
Well, right. But either way,
yes,
this explains,
yeah,
especially in northern Gaza, why they're pushing them to the south.
Right.
Because assuming that Israel gets the green light to do this, then they're able to make the proposal, or at least they have made the proposal several times,
right,
in order to complete this project. So let's talk about it a little bit more in depth.
Robert Inlakesh, one of my favorites.
Yes,
I have him there tonight too.
He reported. Wait. Yeah. Here we go. Wait. Actually, there we go. So he reports Ben Gurion Canal, U.S. supports Israel-Gaza war over a trade route.
Okay.
So,
and one more clicky to go back. Cool.
There we go. The U.S. and Israel have been planning the construction of brand new trade routes, which are only possible through normalization agreements signed between Tel Aviv and the Arab world. So what is the Ben Gurion Canal, India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor? And why is this so important to Washington's considerations when backing the current Israeli onslaught on Gaza? Could the reason the U.S. is supporting Israel's war against Gaza full force be because of a trade route? Lately, there has been some talk of what is known as the Ben Gurion Canal Project, which would essentially be an alternative trade route created through Israel-Palestine, which would be inorganically carved out of the earth to replace Egypt's Suez Canal, which of course is crucial to international shipping at this point and would bring in significant revenue for the Israelis. In fact, after Israel and the United Arab Emirates normalized ties in 2020, there was a lot of talk about bringing this project to the forefront of the economic cooperation between the United Arab Emirates and Israel. Then in 2021, there was even more chatter about this as the United Arab Emirates and Israel wanted to reap the benefits of providing an alternate trade route to the Suez Canal. Yet there are many issues at hand, including the environmental costs. And of course, the fact that Saudi Arabia had not normalized ties with the Israelis, and to make such a project work without any problems, mainly due to the waterways that ships would have to pass through to enter the canal, Saudi Arabia was going to have to normalize ties.
Which they've been doing.
The Ben Gurion Canal Project is not a new idea. According to leaked documents, in 1963, the US proposed using some 520 nuclear bombs to make it a reality. So I'm going to read that again. 520 nuclear bombs in order to build this canal.
520. And this was in 1963. That's not that long ago, Care Bear.
No, that was what, 60 years ago? So,
right.
No, 70.
Yeah.
No, 60. But so even back then, like with Palestinians living in Gaza, what was the intention? To nuke them, like literally like Hiroshima? So
I mean, those aren't even nukes. These are nukes. They're planning to use 520 nukes. Nukes.
Right.
520 of them.
So which the U.S. proposed.
Fucking canal.
Why Israel?
The U.S. proposed it. Who would have made that proposal in 1963? Can someone look that up for me? Thank you very much. I'm sure that's someone we know.
Would that be Nixon?
It may not have even been him directly. It may have been, could have been Kissinger even.
Right.
So, yeah.
But anyway, the proposed trade route will run from the port city of Eilat and head north. The canal that would have to be dug would have been even longer than the Suez Canal. The U.S. and Israel did not go through with the project for several reasons. I think, as Kim, assuming that's her name, said.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it Kim. Environmental issues, one.
Kennedy. That's Kennedy admin. Yep.
So my guess, one, environmental concerns. I'm sure even back then there were concerns about that. Number two, and I think, as I said, you're going to eradicate Palestinians.
Not just, bro, the long last radiation. I mean, it's nukes. Like, I don't. Y'all know how like people are upset that we let it go. Two nukes we let go, right? Like, imagine 520 in a fucking centralized area. You don't think that might have any environmental problems? Like, that's fucked up. Okay.
However, something that was being actively discussed before the October 7th Hamas attacks was the possibility of creating a land route that would run through Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories through the port of Haifa into Europe. Called the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, the route would have revolutionized trade and was a major item on the agenda of the G20 summit in September. The U.S. was determined to make a plan a reality to shape what Benjamin Netanyahu called at the United Nations General Assembly recently the New Middle East, and was integral to the U.S. plan to combat China and its Belt and Road
Initiative, which their Belt and Road Initiative literally combines like fucking 4 continents, like with a railway and land route. That's a big deal economically. So, like,
the trade route. You got any?
No, I was waiting on you.
Okay. All right. The trade route went up in flames with the Hamas-led attack on October 7th, undermining international confidence in Israeli security. To make their project work, the U.S. and Israel will have to crush Hamas and crush Gaza and any Palestinian resistance that ever again challenge the objectives of the United States in the Middle East. So we're going to watch this clip. So it's a lot here that I've already mentioned, but they are going to mention some new information that was not necessarily in the article. So you can actually play the whole thing.
Yes, sir.
A little bit more about the Ben Gurion Canal.
Did you know the US had a plan to use nuclear bombs to build an alternative to the Suez Canal? We'll explain, but let's get some context first. The Ben Gurion Canal Project, alternatively known as the Israeli Canal or Palestinian Canal, is an ambitious proposal to construct a waterway through Israel. The canal would connect the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, serving as a competitor to Egypt's Suez Canal, which currently sees the passage of 12% of the world's trade and 10% of global oil distribution. The project is estimated to cost between $16 billion to $55 billion and would span approximately 182 miles or 293 kilometers, making it nearly 1/3 longer than the existing Suez Canal. The idea of constructing an alternative to the Suez Canal has been discussed for decades. Named after Israel's founding father and first Prime Minister, Ben Gurion, the canal aims to address the various disruptions that have plagued the Suez Canal, including blockages and prolonged closures. And yes, in 1963, the US Department of Energy and the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory developed a classified plan that suggested using 520 underground nuclear explosions to aid in the excavation process through the Negev desert hills. This plan was eventually made public in 1993. The proposed route for the Ben Gurion...
Yeah.
Pausing.
So Yeah, so like underground nukes. And this was classified. So so they really did not want the public to know about this. So essentially, and again, I could imagine that it was a way to kind of, I don't want to say it in this way, but kill two birds with one stone in terms of alleviating the Palestinian problem and then dealing with this economic want in terms of getting this canal somewhat constructed. So yeah, but again, this was
not that long ago.
It's just not that long ago, and just the idea that, you know, even back then there was still this idea, like that's something I just can't get over. Is even back then, like there was this,
what a villain in the Fallout universe would do. Like we got to have a shipping canal, so we're gonna use nukes to do it. What? Okay. You know, get your fucking iodine pills ready, I guess.
Anyway, go ahead.
Canal would start at the Gulf of Aqaba near the port city of Eilat on the Israeli-Jordanian border. It would then traverse the Arabah Valley for about 100 kilometers between the Negev Mountains and the Jordanian highlands. The canal would turn westward before reaching the Dead Sea Basin and continue through a valley in the Negev mountain range. Finally, it would curve northward to circumvent the Gaza Strip and link up with the Mediterranean Sea. Clearly, the canal would offer similar advantages to the Suez Canal, allowing ships to
which
bypass
they might not want to do.
Route around Africa's southern tip and the Cape of Good Hope. The exact details and timeline for the Ben Gurion Canal Project are still under discussion, and it remains uncertain whether the project will come to fruition. However, the proposal has generated significant interest and debate given its potential impact on global trade and geopolitical dynamics. This is particularly noteworthy when considering the economic stakes involved. For context, the Suez Canal reported a record annual revenue of $9.4 billion for the fiscal year ending on June 30th, 2023, highlighting the economic potential of such a waterway. Were the Israel Canal constructed, it would redirect a substantial proportion of this revenue with obvious consequences for Egypt. Moreover, the canal would give Israel further leverage both regionally and globally, allowing it to partially control a key maritime route that could influence trade dynamics, enhance its geopolitical standing, and potentially serve as a strategic asset in diplomatic negotiations, with global trade only set to increase as states across Africa, Asia, and Latin America continue to develop. The possibility of diversifying one of the world's major naval choke points remains an attractive proposition for ensuring the resilience and efficiency of international commerce. However, the possibility of the Ben Gurion Canal's construction remains as uncertain as the current global geopolitical landscape.
Okay. Well.
So it Rob didn't mention this in the article, but this project kind of came up again because remember a couple of years ago where a boat got stuck in the Suez Canal, like
yes.
It
shut down for a while.
Yeah, for like a while. So that was more of a cause back then to to get this done in light of that incident. So I pulled this from Construction World. I guess this is an Indian base, given the I guess that's Indian newspaper
domain.
So yeah, so as we talked about, Israel thought about the idea, obviously, of potentially bombing, but digging through rock in order to do this canal. The other idea that has been floating on the table is creating a railroad. So as they mentioned in Construction World, talks about
you had it. There you go.
Talks about an alternative to the Suez Canal are ongoing, after more than 400 vessels were left stranded at either end of the canal after the 400-meter container ship Ever Given ran aground, leading to the blockage on March 23rd. Again, that was 2 years ago.
Yep.
Elliott is a southern Israeli port and resort town on the Red Sea near Jordan. In 2012, the Israeli cabinet voted to construct a railway line in Elliott to provide passenger and freight service, but subsequent studies showed that the project was not economically feasible, and the project had to be shelved. And the article in the Haaretz suggests that the aftermath of the unprecedented crisis caused on the Suez Canal by the Ever Given, this would be a good time to revive the project. Instead of turning left at the north end of the Red Sea to pass through the canal, ocean-going vessels could veer right up to the Gulf of Elliott, unload their cargo adjacent trains for shipment to Ashdod or Haifa ports, and then reload onto ships bound for Europe. Shippers would save Suez Canal fees that come to hundreds. You can zoom out.
Yeah, it's close.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Israel would collect a fee for moving goods between its ports. However, the reason for shelving the project is that it found economically unviable and unfeasible. A 2013 study by Professor Eran Besselson and the late Moshe Givoni found that Elliott Port could not be expanded enough to justify the cost of a railway line without creating major environmental damage.
Pause. So a railway, not enough environmental damage. 520 nukes, though, that's fine. Like, yeah. Okay.
Well,
okay.
Well, you can make the argument that they didn't, like, back then, they didn't care as much about environmental issues.
Sure.
I mean,
I feel like they knew what nukes were capable of then, but, you know, what do I know?
Right. Well,
like, yeah. It was the 60s. That was pretty recent for them. So.
Right. President of the Israel Chamber of Shipping, Yoram Sabat, has rejected the idea of using the railway line. Israel's ports are already operating at capacity and can accept more vessels without creating long lines. Today, Elliott serves mainly as a port of entry for imported vehicles from East Asia for the Israeli market. In the 1950s and 60s, when Egypt closed the Suez Canal to Israeli traffic, Elliott had played an important strategic role. A declassified memorandum reveals that the U.S. planned in 1963 to create an alternative to the Suez Canal via nearly 260 kilometers through the desert. So we know a little bit more about that. So actually, I just pulled this today. Shout out to Richie Vethurst. He actually, he has spoken a lot about this. He definitely has some clips about the Ben Gurion Canal on his channel, but I guess he took a lot of what he said there and actually wrote up an article in the Mayadeen English publication, actually last week, actually. So it's a long article. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'll read the parts that how this affects the region itself. So, no, go back. Thank you. So Richie writes, the Suez Canal is a geostrategic asset in every sense of the word. It sits at the intersection of 3 continents and 2 bodies of water. It cuts shipping times and costs by so much that today 12% of global trade and 30% of global container traffic pass through the Suez Canal. Egyptian President El-Sisi was told in the last weeks that if he accepts Israel's plan to take Palestinians in Gaza and put them in the Sinai Desert, which Israel would pay for, then the United States would wipe Egypt's national debt. We've talked about this before. This is why Israel is absolutely obliterating Gaza. They want to seize Gaza for themselves and kill off all Palestinians and the resistance. In addition to offering debt relief, the United States and Israel have another incentive for Egypt lined up. Egypt has been suffering from acute water shortages since its neighbor Ethiopia built the so-called Renaissance Dam in 2011, cutting much-needed water from the Nile to both Sudan and Egypt. It has caused a huge dispute ever since that has yet to be resolved. Ethiopia has a significant Jewish population. The United States and Israel could theoretically lean on Ethiopia, as they have done before, and pressure it not to fill up its reservoirs, which would be detrimental to Egypt and incentivize al-Sisi to take in Palestinians from Gaza. While it is a natural human response to flee war, Palestinians have refused to abandon their homes in Gaza for a very good reason. They know that if they leave, they will never see their homes again. Most people in Gaza originally came from other parts of Palestine. They already lost their homes once to Israeli settlers from 1948 onward, and they are not willing to lose their homes again. So, in short, the implications of this canal is huge. And given especially the gas reserves were discovered recently.
Yeah.
So to top that off, plus this, Israel will get crazy paid. So, so this will give them even more incentive to do it. Environmental concerns be damned. So to conclude, despite the appeal of having Gazians move to supposedly safety in the Sinai, this would be a betrayal for the Palestinian cause and the surrender of even more land to the Zionist occupation. The Israelis would then build their Ben Gurion Canal, cementing Washington and Tel Aviv's control over the world's most important shipping lane and global maritime trade. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, we've talked about the implications of pushing them to the Sinai. We know that they want it up to the Nile, right? This is what the settler movement wants. So, you're talking, I don't know, let's say we move a ton of really pissed off Palestinians after you've genocided most of them. You push the rest of them who are left, which are going to be children and, elderly, because that's who's not fighting, right? Wait till those kids grow up in Egypt, right there in the desert. You don't think they're going to retaliate?
Interesting you said this. I put a tweet about this, and I forgot the guy, the anti-Zionist guy. We did a TikTok of his. I showed it actually to Nuno, friend to the show, earlier today, and he said something like, well, I forgot his name, and I'm so sorry, but actually, I actually told Indy, I actually want to see if we can get an interview with him, actually. But he basically said the reason why Israelis are killing off Palestinians,
children, is because they don't want them to grow up to kill them back. Yeah,
exactly. So essentially, like a second, like think of it in more biblical terms, like a second Jesus.
You're lucky I'm around and follow very similar people on Twitter, because I can pull that up for you.
Okay,
here you go. No, it's going to be in this. And it's going to be Adame Media.
It's on my page.
Yeah, I got it. I retweeted it too.
Okay.
Let me just make sure I have my messages closed.
Actually made a good point that it's so ironic that, Zionists are essentially waiting for their Messiah. And they are looking to very much do the very thing, because those of you who are biblical scholars, Jesus had to go to where? As a toddler? To Egypt for what reason?
Yes.
Genocide, infanticide.
Yes.
So the idea that you know, Zion in a way are repeating history in terms of their fear of having, you know what, I'm not going to do it justice.
Let this guy, yep.
Yeah, he will tell you.
We need to talk about why the IOF is systemically killing babies in Gaza.
And I think this is a ex-IOF IDF guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Now, it's very important to recognize that this is not some barbaric, not thought out strategy. This is extremely deliberate, the targeting of children. Why would the IOF be so insistent on attacking hospitals, destroying hospitals, killing literal children, making sure that incubators are turned off so 30-some children who are barely even alive get executed? There's a reason behind this. And the reason is because the Israeli state knows that if these children live, they will be the biggest freedom fighters in the history of the world. And one of these children will be able to liberate Palestine. After one of these children has witnessed genocide, has literally been born into a world where everyone around them, every person that they loved, has been murdered by the state that they are subject to. These children are growing up in concentration camps. The propaganda likes to talk about terrorism and shit and how Palestinians brainwash their kids in order to hate Israel. Israel knows that it is creating the most hardcore generation of freedom fighters in Gaza right now who are going to dismantle the Israeli state by any means necessary. Even if Israel destroys Hamas, they know that these kids who are being socialized in genocide are never going to forget, and they're never going to forgive what this settler colony did to their family. And they will be the most hardcore freedom fighters and the most hardcore resistance that has ever been created in the history of the world. And the Israeli settler colonial state knows that. So they're trying to eliminate every single one of them so they don't have to deal with the consequences of one Palestinian freedom fighter in Gaza who right now is 3 years old. And in 15 years from now, they will remember how they grew up in a concentration camp and how their family, their bloodline was executed. And they are the lone survivor, that they represent their lineage, and they will avenge the blood of their martyred ancestors. There is no better way to create a freedom fighter than to systemically eradicate someone's family. And the Israeli settler colony knows that if any of these kids survive, one freedom fighter from Gaza who was socialized and born in a concentration camp, whose family was murdered, whose ancestors were displaced, they know that these kids literally pose the single greatest threat to the Israeli settler colony, and that one Palestinian survivor from Gaza will be able to liberate Palestine. That's why they're killing so many kids. That's why.
Yep.
Jesus.
Uh-huh.
Literally.
In more
Jesus.
ways than one. Yes. So
but yeah, like but I didn't make that connection until today.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't
There's
make the
no witnesses.
Like right.
I mean,
but
literally
the
what
idea
it is.
Of, like, yeah. But the idea of Israelis, and just as an aside, I was watching I guess it was a Jubilee, kind of Jubilee-esque clip where they had Palestinians and Jews talking in regards to not just this issue, but just the history, you know, surrounding. And I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I don't think there's like I don't think it has been explicitly said in this way, but you know, I would argue, especially for like, there's hatred for each other on both sides
already. It's
but
only going to get worse.
already, well, been that you can argue been there,
Well,
but especially within the last few decades, it has been exacerbated. But these guys many of them were able to recognize it, that was caused by essentially the British and now us, the US government, to have them fighting so that we're able to kind of take their spoils. So that's just why the US has, again, with the Ben Gurion Project, quite a big interest in it because that's capital for us. And obviously, you know, like Israel, you know, has to gain from it, but we're going to gain more out of it. And to continue having Israelis and Palestinians/Arabs fighting, you know, it's only going to prove in our benefit. So that just kind of similar to what our government does to us in terms of, you know, the poors. You know, we're like looking at each other, you know, in terms of, oh, this immigrant is taking our job, oh, like this person like is doing this and that, and we're pointing fingers at each other. Versus, again, like Jimmy George says this all the time, we're punching each other but not punching up. So it's the same thing against the Israel, like those generally Israelis and Arabs, they've been punching at each other. They've had this intense hatred for each other and not recognizing that it's in the West that they should be turning their eyes on and actually kicking the shit out of people in the West because they're the ones who have actually, again, a lot of these Zionists.
Don't look at where these leaders are coming. Yes, yes.
They're Europeans.
They're German. They're Ukrainian. They're you know, British. They're Swedish. They're like it's literally zero of them are like native born. So
right.
Yeah,
so these are European born. Many of them, at least the originators of Zionism, atheists, and hijacked Judaism and Christianity as well to complete their imperialist ends in the Middle East that we're seeing come to fruition today. And like I said, this is a very, very, very important story that, again, it's sad that not a lot of people are talking about. But that being said, I don't think people are going to be talking about this a lot right now. But I would guarantee within the next decade,
we'll be hearing about why that canal is
like with Egypt, that like because Egypt is already pissed at Israel right now.
Yes, they are.
So the fact that, you know, that Israel is attempting to overtake them on the global market, which would affect BRICS as well. So this is probably our answer to hijacking BRICS.
Yep.
Is this project.
And it's economic war with China and Russia. You know, right. For sure.
So this works. So all that to say, I can't imagine things are going to get worse.
Strap in, folks.
And I will imagine very quickly within the next few years. So, but yeah, I think watch out for this so that at least you guys are aware that of the one of many reasons why the West has a huge investment, you know, in the region. But again, the gas was the icing on the cake. This was the whole thing this whole time.
Well, we'll ask you, please share this video, subscribe, like, or watch another video on this very channel. It's the same to YouTube as subscribing. So we would appreciate you doing that as well. But if you care about these issues, please share. We're heavily suppressed and would like to not be. So yeah, like and subscribe if you can. Thank you very much. Leave a comment down the doobly-doo.
So I think right now we have 15 people watching. So I think for our last segment, do you think that we can hit at least 20?
Probably. I would imagine
do
so.
That.
If people tell 5 people to get here, I'm sure that's possible.
Well, I'm sure people want to get here for this last story anyhow. So.
Yep. So I'll check Rock and Rumble real quick. No. Okay. Well, you ready for the last one?
I am.
I think it'll be pretty timely. So we're gonna hit a lot of the same topics we did a minute ago, but human shields. We've heard a lot of talks about this coming from Hasbara and the likes of them, but